Moments ago, Buckingham Palace released a decree so shocking it sent ripples across the monarchy. Camilla's grandchildren, once ushered into the royal fold, have been ruthlessly stripped of their honours, erased from titles, ceremonies, and all formal protocol. Why now? Who ordered it? And what does this mean for the Queen herself? This isn't just a demotion, this is war. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The announcement was swift, sterile, and striking. A single parchment, stamped with the seal of royal authority, was delivered not with ceremony, but with quiet finality. It bore a chilling clarity. All formal honours granted to the grandchildren of Queen Camilla Parker Bowles were to be rescinded, effective immediately. No explanation, no grace. Just an abrupt rollback of everything they had been offered under King Charles's modern monarchy experiment. Within minutes, the press went into a frenzy. Tabloid editors scrambled to confirm what sounded too explosive to be real. Royal commentators fumbled for words, caught between disbelief and dread. And yet, the official confirmation arrived with no denial, no clarification, and most conspicuously, no appearance from Camilla herself. Her silence was louder than any press conference. The public had seen these grandchildren at events, standing beside the Queen, attending high-profile weddings, receiving security details, speaking at palace-adjacent functions. Their presence was not just acknowledged, it had been normalized. But now, it was as if they had never been there. The website listings were purged, invitations rescinded, any insignia they once wore now obsolete. And the most disturbing part, the royal decree bore no signature from King Charles. Instead, it was marked by an unnamed senior royal figure, prompting urgent questions about who, exactly, now pulls the strings behind the velvet curtain. Whispers grew louder. Was this a coordinated move from the shadows of the firm? Was it a reaction to internal pressure, or the first sign of a deeper power shift brewing within the palace? Sources close to the situation hinted at tension behind the scenes. A high-ranking royal aide was overheard describing the situation as a necessary reset. Others were more cryptic, using language that sent a chill down spines. This wasn't just about protocol. This was personal. And if it was personal, it meant the decision had roots deeper than any of us could see. A quiet reckoning had begun, one that would not stop with Camilla's grandchildren. Because the monarchy wasn't just cutting titles, it was cutting ties. But to understand why Camilla's grandchildren became targets, we must dig deeper into the quiet storm brewing behind the palace walls. Camilla's grandchildren were never born royal yet. Somehow, they rose like phoenixes through royal ranks, leaving whispers of favoritism in their wake. Inside the palace, the blood royals, especially William, watched silently, until now. The seeds of envy weren't planted overnight. They were generations in the making. They were children of a different lineage tied to Camilla through her first marriage, not to the House of Windsor. But from the moment Charles ascended the throne, their presence within royal circles began to intensify. Subtle at first. A shared balcony moment here, a ceremonial role there. But soon, it was impossible to ignore. They attended events usually reserved for those with royal blood. They received armed security, protocol briefings, and even rumored access to royal archives. Behind the palace gates, murmurs turned into murmurs of dissent. Why were outsiders being granted the trappings of royalty, while others, bound by blood, waited in the shadows? Prince William, poised as the next sovereign, kept his distance. But aides close to him described a growing discomfort, one not spoken, but deeply felt. He had spent his life preparing to inherit a kingdom grounded in legacy, history, and bloodline. Watching Camilla's grandchildren rise beside his own children felt like a quiet betrayal of that legacy. Though never directly confrontational, William began withdrawing his support from certain ceremonial proposals. When discussions arose over titles or roles for Camilla's kin, his silence became his answer. Behind that silence was an heir who saw the monarchy becoming something he no longer recognized. Catherine, ever composed and cautious, echoed that silence. But her gaze during certain palace gatherings said more than words ever could. Those close to her whispered of discomfort, not rooted in resentment, but in protection. She feared for her own children. She feared that blurred lines today could become crises tomorrow. The line of succession wasn't just a tradition, it was a structure. And the presence of Camilla's grandchildren, unbound by royal lineage yet interwoven with royal privilege, threatened to crack that foundation. Palace aides, ever conscious of optics, issued quiet warnings. The monarchy was undergoing its most significant rebranding in decades, leaner, more modern, more focused. But with Camilla's family stepping further into the spotlight, they warned the image was becoming muddled. Media outlets, quick to spot inconsistencies, began questioning the roles of individuals who, by birth, had no place in state affairs. Still, the public's sentiment was fragmented. Some praised Camilla for blending modern family dynamics into the monarchy. Others called it overreach, an attempt to crown those who had never been chosen. And then came the whispered recollections of Queen Elizabeth's coolness toward Camilla's family. The late monarch had reportedly insisted that while Camilla could be accepted in time, her children and grandchildren were never to be part of the royal machinery. That line, once blurred under Charles's reign, had now been redrawn with chilling clarity. Camilla's rise had not erased the past. It had only delayed its consequences. And as those boundaries blurred, one secret council inside the palace decided it was time to restore the bloodline and remove the shadows. They're called the Elders, a clandestine group of senior royals and advisors sworn to preserve the crown's bloodline purity. For months, they operated in silence, but now they've made their first visible move, stripping Camilla's line. And this is only the beginning. Their existence was never meant to be public, not written in books, not acknowledged in official records. But within the ancient corridors of the monarchy, their presence had always lingered, watching, waiting, remembering the old rules when the crown did not bend to affection, modernity, or outsiders. They weren't a committee, they were a force. Formed from a tight circle of trusted aristocrats, hereditary lords, and former royal secretaries, the elders believed one truth above all, that monarchy survives only when its bloodline remains unbroken. And in their eyes, Camilla's family was a fracture. In the wake of King Charles's recent health concerns and illness quietly managed behind palace walls, the elders began to move with newfound urgency. The king, once firm in his vision of a modern monarchy shaped by compassion and inclusion, was now weakened, and that vulnerability created a vacuum. While Charles still signed the decrees and greeted the diplomats, real decisions were beginning to shift elsewhere. Meetings once held in the king's private study were relocated. Proposals once passed through Charles were now filtered through unnamed intermediaries. And in this soft coup, the elders seized their moment. To them, Camilla's grandchildren were not just a distraction, they were a contamination. An erosion of the centuries-old understanding that monarchy flows through blood, not marriage. Their presence, amplified by Camilla's soft influence and Charles's emotional indulgence, was seen as a threat to order. The elders called it legacy drift. The public might have seen smiling children at royal events, but the elders saw an infection taking root in the heart of tradition. And so, they decided to act. Their plan was simple, surgical, and brutal. They would not attack Camilla directly, that would cause division. Instead, they would target her lineage, those without royal blood but cloaked in royal privilege. With support for the monarchy waning across sections of the public and media scrutiny sharpening, the timing was perfect. A quiet purge disguised as reform, a return to bloodline purity framed as modernization. Internally, one phrase was whispered with chilling confidence: cleanse the court, and when the royal decree was finally issued, it bore their fingerprints. No names, no traceable author, but every syllable echoed their ideology. Stripping Camilla's grandchildren of all formal honors wasn't just symbolic, it was a declaration. The elders had revealed themselves, not in title, but in power. And their work had only begun. But even within the palace, not everyone agreed with this ancient purge. One woman stood still, shocked, humiliated, and seething. Behind closed doors, Camilla broke down. Her face, once composed and dutiful, was twisted by betrayal. Not just of her grandchildren, but of herself. For decades, she endured scorn to reach the throne. And now, In one brutal stroke, they reminded her she never truly belonged. She had spent half a lifetime being told she wasn't welcome by the public, by the press, by the very institution she eventually came to represent. But this wound wasn't from the tabloids or the protesters outside the palace gates. This was from within, from the same system she had worked tirelessly to uphold, to soften, to modernize. It didn't matter that she had stood beside Charles through scandal and storm. It didn't matter that she had taken on the role of queen consort with grace and poise. When they struck her family, they made their true judgment clear. She was never one of them, and they would never see her blood as royal. Inside her chambers, Camilla sat in a silence so loud it felt suffocating. Charles, though physically near, felt emotionally distant, like a monarch locked in chains of his own making. He had offered no resistance to the decree, no public defense, no private promise that it would be reversed. His hands, she knew, were bound, but what crushed her more than his silence was his passivity. In the one moment she needed him to be a husband, he remained a king, a conflicted, weakened king caught between legacy and loyalty. There were confrontations, quiet but fierce, late-night conversations with senior royals that ended with thinly veiled threats. She demanded answers, but the answers came cloaked in language she'd heard before: optics, duty, preservation. And then, the most chilling phrase of all: "This is only the beginning." That sentence hung in the air like a noose, suggesting that more cuts, more erasures might be coming. Not just of her grandchildren, but perhaps even of her own standing. The warning was unspoken but deafening. Stay in your place or be reminded of it. She began to fear something she had never dared to consider, that her entire legacy, every hard-won inch of progress she had made, could be wiped away with a few royal signatures. Her family scrubbed from the narrative. Their names reduced to footnotes, their presence reduced to memory. History had a way of forgetting the inconvenient, and the monarchy had perfected the art of selective remembrance. Rumors began to swirl among palace staff that Camilla had asked to reduce her public schedule, that she had begun contemplating retreat, not from her marriage but from the spotlight. A quiet disappearance cloaked as graceful aging. But behind those whispers was a far more devastating truth. Camilla was losing the will to fight. For the first time since Diana's ghost stopped haunting her reflection, Camilla felt invisible again. But while Camilla mourned in silence, someone else was watching, quietly gathering power to finish what the elders had started. He never raised his voice, never needed to. William, the heir apparent, had been waiting for the right moment to reclaim the monarchy's lineage, and now, with Camilla's line removed, the stage was his. But was this a power move or revenge? What many mistook for royal restraint was in truth carefully calculated silence. William had learned early that in the monarchy, noise is weakness and patience is power. While the drama surrounding Camilla's grandchildren unfolded publicly, behind the scenes, William was orchestrating something far more consequential, a quiet reformation of the monarchy itself. With each passing month, his role evolved from symbolic prince to strategic architect. And once the elders acted, he didn't just support their move, he accelerated it. Inside private advisory meetings, William championed a leaner, cleaner institution, a monarchy for the modern era, one that honored its lineage without diluting it. He called it Monarchy 2. To the outside world, it sounded like innovation. But to those inside the firm, the meaning was razor-sharp: fewer names, fewer faces, more control. Camilla's grandchildren were simply the first line trimmed from a tree that had grown, in William's view, wild and unsustainable. And his advisors agreed. In hushed discussions away from public ears, they spoke of resetting royal optics. Too many extended figures, too many blurred boundaries. William's solution? Cut until clarity returned. But this wasn't just about titles, it was about trust. The tension between William and Camilla had simmered since the earliest days of coronation planning. William had reportedly pushed back on aspects of her ceremonial role, concerned about overshadowing Catherine and the future Queen's image. The disagreements, never explosive, were corrosive, dripping quietly into every shared agenda. every unseen interaction. And once Charles began showing signs of retreat emotionally, and perhaps politically, William stepped further into the vacuum. He began surrounding himself with loyalists, young, sharp advisors with no emotional ties to the past. Together, they began shaping a vision of the monarchy that left little room for ambiguity, bloodline over association, legacy over sentiment. The move against Camilla's family wasn't random, it was strategic. And if some called it cold, William didn't flinch. He knew the throne wasn't inherited in spirit, it was defended in policy. And when he spoke behind closed doors, he spoke with certainty. This was not the last name to be cut. It was a signal, a foreshadowing. The monarchy was entering a phase of controlled elimination. No one's position, no matter how sentimental, was immune. And while Charles grieved in silence and Camilla reeled in shame, William moved with resolve. The crown to him was not a symbol of unity. It was a structure, and that structure needed pruning. But while William played chess, someone else prepared to flip the entire board using secrets that could ruin them all. For years, Catherine remained the palace's portrait of silence, graceful, compliant, untouched by scandal. But the attack on Camilla's grandchildren stirred something ancient in her, the pain of a mother. What she whispered to William changed the course of royal history. She had watched the events unfold with calm detachment, the way a royal is trained to. But beneath the calm was something restless. Catherine understood that loyalty to the crown often came at the cost of personal emotion. Yet this time, it wasn't just about duty, it was about children. Not just Camilla's, but hers. She knew what it meant when the system picked favorites. She knew what it felt like when a family divided itself by blood, favor, and fear. She had seen it before in Diana's eyes. She was now seeing it again in her own reflection. While William viewed the removal of Camilla's line as a matter of royal necessity, Catherine saw a warning. Her children, though born royal, were also born into a family that devoured its own when power was on the line. And Camilla's grandchildren, regardless of their origin, were still children caught in a storm they never created. The quiet resentment that had long simmered between her and Camilla had never boiled over. But this wasn't about rivalry anymore. It was about a deeper fracture, one that could come for anyone, even them. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Catherine turned to William and said words that haunted him long after. It was never about blood. It was about trust. She wasn't defending Camilla's decisions. She wasn't endorsing favoritism. She was warning against the precedent being set. If the monarchy could erase those it once embraced simply for optics, then who could ever feel safe within its embrace? Privately, Catherine had already made quiet overtures, subtle questions posed to advisors, a softened stance in conversations with the elders, suggestions that certain decisions be delayed for the sake of unity. Her influence wasn't loud, but it was there, and those closest to her began to sense the weight of her concern. She feared the same forces that destroyed Diana's peace were now resurfacing, dressed in the polished language of duty and reform. But behind those polished words was the same old machine, cutthroat, unfeeling, and unforgiving. Before the final decision against Camilla's grandchildren was signed, Catherine issued one last warning to the inner circle: remove the wrong family, and you'll start a fire we can't contain. They didn't listen, and that fire would soon be lit not from within, but from the one royal the family exiled long ago, who now smelled blood. From Montecito, a voice emerged, one the palace tried to forget. Prince Harry, watching from afar, recognized the signs. A family turning on its own, a bloodline war disguised as honor, and his message was chillingly clear: you're making our mistake. The news reached him like a warning shot, not just to Camilla's family, but to anyone who once believed blood and love were enough to survive the institution. Harry had seen this playbook before: the slow erasure of individuals deemed inconvenient, the weaponization of tradition to silence the vulnerable. Meghan had lived through it. He had walked through the fire. And now, watching from across the Atlantic, he understood exactly what was happening. It wasn't just a pruning of names. It was a purge of anything the palace couldn't control. To Harry, the message was simple and familiar: you don't belong here anymore. He reportedly called William briefly, coldly, and spoke words that landed like a knife. Protect your own, even if they don't share your blood. Because if you don't, the system will consume them, just like it tried to consume us. But there was no warmth in the exchange. Their brotherhood had long withered under the weight of betrayal, press warfare and clashing loyalties. Still, Harry knew William's silence on Camilla's family wasn't just political, it was dangerous. And the consequences would not stay hidden for long. Back in California, Meghan remained silent, not out of indifference but out of calculation. Every headline about the monarchy was a reminder of the storm they escaped, but also of the storm that still circled. Friends close to the couple said Meghan viewed the removal of Camilla's grandchildren as a coded warning to anyone trying to humanize the monarchy from within. If even Camilla, once loathed, then reluctantly accepted, could see her family erased, then no one was truly safe from the crown's blade. And yet, behind Meghan's silence was a deeper fear. This wasn't just about legacy, it was about jealousy. Harry too began asking the questions others wouldn't voice. Was Camilla's line targeted because of protocol, or because their presence made someone uncomfortable? Was this the palace correcting a mistake, or punishing a threat? He saw the fingerprints of insecurity all over the decision, the same kind of fear that had pushed him and Meghan out, dressed in the language of duty, the same kind of fear that weaponized image over identity. And as the palace attempted to control the narrative, Harry considered something he hadn't touched in years: leverage. Sources claimed he began revisiting archived materials, legal notes, personal recordings, evidence he had kept not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. If this new chapter of royal politics turned into a full-scale purge, Harry wasn't going to watch silently. He knew too much. And if pushed, he would not hesitate to protect others the way no one had protected him. Not with pleas, with proof. But before Harry could act, another revelation detonated inside the palace. A name was leaked, and it changed everything. The royal decree wasn't the only document signed that week. Deep within the palace's vault, another name had been quietly removed, and another secretly added. A name that wasn't supposed to exist. And when it leaked, it wasn't just Camilla who was in danger, it was the entire monarchy. What the public saw was only the surface, a formal announcement, crisp language, careful phrasing. But underneath that language was a second file, drafted weeks earlier, known only to a handful of insiders. It wasn't ceremonial, it wasn't symbolic, it was structural. A rewrite of a future that had, until then, been delicately balanced between blood and obligation. And at the heart of it all was a single name, Camilla's eldest grandchild. Unofficially, quietly, he had been promised a ceremonial patronage, an honorary position tethered to the Royal Commonwealth Foundation. It was meant to be harmless, a gesture of inclusion that didn't rattle the succession but honored Camilla's decades of loyalty. But to the elders, it was a red line. Without Charles's full knowledge, or perhaps without his full resistance, that name was removed from the confidential draft. In its place appeared a new designation, Princess Charlotte, not for the distant future, but for now. Her role, once envisioned to evolve naturally with time, was suddenly accelerated. She was being positioned for public duties, patronage previews, and high-profile engagements far earlier than expected. The shift was swift, jarring, and strategic. It wasn't about honoring Charlotte, it was about erasing someone else. The elders had made their move. The logic behind it was sharp and cold. Elevate the blood royals early, push out those with no true claim. Strengthen the line, simplify the optics, and restore order. But no strategy survives the press. Within days, a leak exploded across major outlets. A draft copy of the rewritten ceremonial calendar surfaced, redacted but unmistakably real. The change of names was there, buried but visible. Journalists pounced. Was Camilla's grandchild promised a role and then deleted? Why now? Who approved it? And what did Charlotte's sudden elevation really mean? The palace, caught off guard, entered full containment mode. Aides denied, lawyers threatened. But the questions kept multiplying. Who had leaked it? Was it a rogue staffer, an angry sympathizer, or a calculated move from inside the royal machine itself? Rumors pointed in all directions, some even whispering that Camilla, devastated by the blow, had allowed someone close to her to release it in an act of retaliation. Others claimed it was Harry, striking from afar, triggering chaos just as tensions peaked. The media storm didn't just reveal a scandal, it exposed the fracture lines that had been widening for months. Every denial from the palace sounded like confirmation. Every photo op felt staged. Public trust, already shaky, now teetered on the edge. Because this wasn't just about who gets what title, it was about who gets remembered and who gets erased. But as the dust settles, one final voice speaks, the king himself, and his silence might just be the loudest betrayal of all. When Charles finally addressed the nation, his voice trembled not with rage, but with resignation. He hadn't stopped the decree, he hadn't defended Camilla's family, and now he stood between two generations of royals who no longer trusted him. Was this the end of his reign, before it ever truly began? The statement was brief, ambiguous, and emotionally flat, a call for unity wrapped in diplomatic pleasantries. Not once did he mention the names now erased. Not once did he acknowledge the fracture tearing through the House of Windsor. Instead, he spoke of duty, continuity, and tradition, words that landed with the weight of avoidance. For those who once believed he would rule with compassion, it was a devastating confirmation. When tested, Charles chose the crown over the woman who rebuilt his life and the family she brought with her. Behind the scenes, Camilla's silence was no longer dignified, it was damaged. Their bond, long misunderstood by the public but deeply real in private, had suffered its sharpest break. Trust, once fragile but enduring, was now visibly shattered. She withdrew from events, cut down her public appearances, and began operating from the background. It was a retreat, not of weakness, but of quiet heartbreak. She had fought for him, and he hadn't fought for her. In her absence, William stepped forward. More engagements, more briefings, more whispers that he was now shaping the monarchy's future with or without formal authority. Some called it preparation. Others called it takeover. The term unofficial regency crept into the media, and the palace didn't deny it. Because denial, at this point, would have only fed the fire. And so, the monarchy slipped into a cold season, not broken, but brittle, the once unshakable facade now showing cracks too deep to plaster. Smiles turned stiffer. Events felt emptier. The press, no longer deferential, hovered like vultures. Allies grew quieter, enemies grew bolder, and within palace walls the one phrase that none dared say aloud was now being whispered. A crown divided cannot endure. And as the palace gates close on this chapter, one truth remains. The royal family did not simply lose titles, they lost each other. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.